Yeah,
it's gonna be a tough
is
one.
that history? I'm not sure if that's fair to call history. Is it history? Oh man, this is like now. Yeah, maybe it's not. It's not the territory that we want to be debating
was our
here, but like,
story, not
it
history.
was. I see. I see. But yeah, we were talking about. You were talking about how there's not many other Gabes, right? Gabriel. I was saying it's kind of strange seeing as Gabriel is the Archangel. But then you said he's on Mouse Sports.
Yeah, Archangel's a different team. I was saying he's not an Archangel. He's on Mouse Sports.
Yeah.
Up here on the top left-hand side of the map from Mouse Sports, it's HeRoMaRinE.
Doubt his name is David, but that's what he represents here. It is Noob's MilkiCow. Why is his tag Noob? I'm not gonna, yeah.
I think at least from my records, he's on Berserker Esports. So
awesome. Alrighty. So he is a young Russian up-and-comer.
Oh,
a lot of Russian up-and-comers, actually.
Yeah.
Okay. No shot.
Just left Berserker Esports. Sorry.
So yeah. If you guys heard Berserker Esports, try to remove it from your memory.
Yeah, just forget it. Don't give them the publicity for MilkiCow's victories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, you know, we do get a little bit of that Terran gameplay finally for the stream. It's been a lot of Zergs, mostly Protoss, and finally, those Terrans are going to get a little bit of love as we move into this Terran versus Terran. And I feel like facing Big Gabe in TVT is really, really tough. He looks so strong in this matchup a lot of the time.
Yeah, and Big Gabe, I mean, as far as I've seen in official matches, he doesn't strike me like the type of player that will very often proxy in this matchup. And I would think that if you're MilkiCow, it's even less likely because you're a big underdog going into this, right? So why should Big Gabe take any risks? But yet still, MilkiCow, I mean, he sent his first SCV out, and you can see on the minimap, he scouted everywhere. Neil was pointing to that as well, and that's a little bit of mining loss that I don't know if he can afford to do that kind of thing, is my point against the likes of Big Gabe. Of course, he has played him 14 times, we know, so chances are he's gotten proxied a couple of times. So maybe trying to pick up a good win like that, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I think it's also important to note that Big Gabe is also a very, very active ladder player, and he is constantly out there. He streams quite a bit in his gameplay and everything, so it's not exactly like his play style or anything is a secret, and it's actually something he's even talked about in interviews, that those little tricks or small little tidbits about his play style and everything are a bit more revealed because he does play largely on his stream. So that's one thing that he's kind of accepted, but despite that, he's had as much success as he has, where even Sue was saying, you know, Big Gabe has been basically like the number 4 for Europe for a while. So I think MilkiCow, he's going to have to use all of the resources available to him, including just knowledge about how Big Gabe plays.
Yes, indeed. So we'll see what MilkiCow is able to do here. Looking for a scout, perhaps with that Reaper, and then a follow-up with this medevac and Hellions, as it's loaded straight from the main. Not something that you usually see. A lot of the time, those Hellions are out on the map and then picked up by the medevac, gain some space, clear some rune, make sure that there isn't anything to spot the medevac on the way there. But this is going to work out regardless for MilkiCow, as far as at least getting to the base of Big Gabe, and there's nothing in position for Big Gabe. So this could be a great start for the young Russian, as he's going to have clear entry into this mineral line.
Oh, the worst case scenario too. The Cyclone even moves out, and all of those units are suddenly going to start pulling back. 6 workers already killed, and these Hellions have yet to take almost any damage. A good pickup as well. These Hellions all staying alive. Most of them actually decently healthy as well. 1 Hellion will finally go down. 2nd Hellion also falls to the Cyclone, but medevac, oh my god, it's actually very important to get these out safely.
Oh, so close.
Yeah.
Okay, the miracle will survive, as will those 2 Hellions. So that's a little bit of a win there for MilkiCow. I felt like it could have been a little bit better, perhaps, but it was pretty good.
I mean, you have to even remember, he even managed to kill like an extra Marine there, as well as those like 6 or 7 workers. Now he does have to get back in time to help defend, and his medevac is going to be low, but not really have a lot of time to repair. But lock onto the Widowmine with the Cyclone. Does not manage to get it, though. Nice micro from Big Gabe.
Yeah, good on Burrow right there. MilkiCow doing the proper thing and holding that ramp. And so any units that go up, he will have his choice of which one to target with the Cyclone as long as he is paying attention. He has to be careful not to reveal the Cyclone. Now adjusts last second there. So well positioned, but in spite of that nice opening, MilkiCow only leads by 2 workers and he's trailing behind in supply.
Yeah, mildly behind in a bit of that army supply, but the Raven is going to be potentially the moment where I think both these players have a little bit more security, I was going to say. But, I mean, here we go. Auto turret actually comes out very early on here from MilkiCow, but still loses the Cyclone. Oh, not the trades that he was looking for.
Not at all, especially considering that HeRoMaRinE both keeps the Cyclone and the auto turret, right? So it's kind of a double loss on the side of MilkiCow, unfortunately for him, where he was looking to pick up the Cyclone in exchange for the auto turret. Now Big Gabe very strongly pushing on forward, and those 2 tanks, they get an extra volley off, but it's enough for MilkiCow, at least for the time being, to hold here. A very important hold for him.
That siege tank on the high ground for MilkiCow. I actually think that Big Gabe just literally didn't know that that siege tank was there, and he will get the siege tank with the Vikings. That is a beautiful pickoff. I think you'd happily trade 1 Viking in exchange for that, and even get some chip damage to the Raven, but that engagement did not go the way that I think Big Gabe was looking for. Now drops down his auto turret, they'll snipe up another one of the siege tanks, and the Vikings versus these SCVs that are getting splash damage. I think, yeah, Big Gabe's very happy about that.
Yeah, MilkiCow, unfortunately, he was a little bit slow to react to those Vikings. As soon as they are flying towards his main, his army should have readjusted, but he's so busy. And with that, I mean, with his army then readjusting to go kill the Vikings, Big Gabe carves himself a space to move on forward, and with so few units, he makes so much happen at the front and takes the lead for the first time in the game, I think, as he now is ahead 1 worker and a little bit of army as well.
Yeah, and I think it's important also just to note that, you know, the siege tanks and stuff that Big Gabe was able to snipe off there toward the end were really important, because you see like those siege tank counts can be so important in these like later on fights. But the big thing that I think HeRoMaRinE walked away with from that last fight was just the Viking count, keeping some of those Vikings alive, coming in with reinforcements. He's going to have total air superiority here with even siege tank counts. It's going to be really tough for MilkiCow to deal with. But now both these players are moving out and they're moving at the same time, but I think both these players do start to catch on to each other now.
Yeah, that was a good scout from MilkiCow. He was doing the scout and also dropping a supply depot in the back of that potential 4th mineral line to spot for any moves onto his own main base, like drops and the like. So very well done from MilkiCow. Doesn't siege the tanks in a perfect position, and Big Gabe, of course, is as good as he is, and knowing that he has the air superiority, goes quickly into that Liberator, really just abusing whatever advantage he has. MilkiCow will be forced to attack here. The Liberator strangely unsieges, perhaps just knowing that there is no hope after the SCVs have been pulled off, and MilkiCow with a hold.
Yeah, MilkiCow, he basically does a trade and says, I will survive in exchange. I will sacrifice some workers to appease the Lord and, you know, big Lord Gabriel. And it's kind of tough because now he's going to be down another 10 workers. He basically stopped mining from his 3rd long enough that now HeRoMaRinE has his own 3rd operational and mining. And remember, those, even though, yes, some siege tanks and stuff do end up falling there for HeRoMaRinE, he still has those Vikings up in the air. He still has the Liberator, that like another Liberator that's on out. It's going to make things very tough. Air control is so important in this matchup.
It really is, and in production we don't see any air on the side of MilkiCow. Also, Big Gabe has stopped, but he continues to keep... actually, does he have the air superiority anymore? Yes, by a lot, actually. I didn't see all the Vikings, but he has 9. So a bunch of them, I think, are tucked somewhere. Not at the very front, but they will be joining here. There they are from the top. MilkiCow with a good siege, however, might be able to equalize on the economic department, but will get cleaned up, no doubt. A lot of those Vikings still surviving in spite of their landing. And with that, however, he does take a little bit of a supply lead. This is a very back and forth game, Robbie.
Yeah, MilkiCow, I think actually catching HeRoMaRinE a bit off guard by hitting up on that north side. I mean, HeRoMaRinE really didn't have that much of a reaction to it until basically they were at his front door. So, I mean, you compare it to, say, how MilkiCow scouted things out, right? He had that spotter Marine on that bottom center base where it saw the army of HeRoMaRinE coming in. He was able to get set up in position. HeRoMaRinE had kind of like the unfortunate, situation where he couldn't really react all that quickly. So I think that HeRoMaRinE, he now has a sensor tower out, which is what he was counting on for scouting some of that kind of stuff. Now he's going to have to be very careful with some of those units, though, because he did lose quite a few of his Vikings.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. And also upgrades are in the lead on the side of MilkiCow. So that's pretty good for him. Things are not looking bad at all for the young Russian here, as Big Gabe will be a little bit faster to the fourth. This is the expansion that he's taking faster. The third was actually faster for MilkiCow, but Gabe managed to equalize with that push that he went for earlier. So I mean, it's a TVT, and now it's gonna come down to basically positional play to those siege tanks and small bits of harassment like this Liberator. I mean, they could make a difference if unaccounted for, but generally speaking, it's gonna come down to the big fights and big positioning mistakes or capitalizations from either player.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think TVT is that kind of weird matchup in StarCraft where it's like, yes, economies absolutely do matter. This is still a game about economies to a degree, but you can make up for economic deficits a lot more in TVT than almost any other matchup with just good army positioning and good compositions, that kind of stuff. Like a good army fight with lower supply can actually make up for a lot in this matchup.
Yeah, and that has to do a lot with the power of the siege tank in this matchup. Of course, with the Terran army being at the core Marines, I mean, they are the most susceptible to siege tanks out of the basic units if you really think about it, right? Like Zealots destroy siege tanks. Zerglings are generally good against siege tanks, but Marines, the main Terran army unit, is kind of crap against siege tanks, which means if your opponent is already pre-sieged, that location is gonna trade effectively, almost no matter what. So it's very difficult to attack into siege positions, and it is very difficult to find those positions to siege aggressively.
Yeah, it's the constant struggle and battle of TVT, but we're getting into a nice little mid game over here where both these players have their fourth bases established. You saw that HeRoMaRinE tried to go for a poke at the south side looking for an opportunity, but he saw a few Marines, decided, no, it seems like you might be prepared over here. And like you were saying, the power of the siege tank, if you're wrong and you push even just a little too far in, your Marines just get obliterated by defensively sieged up tanks. You have to be so cautious. This is definitely one of the most information critical matchups.
Yeah, also notice the transitions from either player. Big Gabe is going into now the Fusion Core 4, but presumably Liberator range, as both players are dropping multiple command centers. So really focusing on that economy, knowing that they are mostly safe. They're not concerned about maxing like you might be in a different matchup, because again, positioning is so important. And instead, they develop their economy for further into the game. So you love to see it. MilkiCow still with a little bit of a lead on those 3-3 upgrades. He stayed on top of that, but it's likely to be inconsequential at this point.
Yeah, kind of the blessing in disguise of being behind a few upgrades or something in a big, long macro game is that your opponent's going to hit 3-3, and you're just going to catch up with 3-3 eventually. And then, like, there's no, like, that upgrade lead no longer matters. It doesn't factor in. There's no 4-4 or anything you can research. So it's going to hit a point where eventually, as long as, you know, MilkiCow isn't able to capitalize on the 3-3 upgrades, like window, that whatever 20-30 second window, HeRoMaRinE should be fine with that.
Yes, indeed. I really love what we're seeing from MilkiCow, going toe-to-toe with one of Europe's finest here. And he is adding Ravens to his air army, whereas Big Gabe is going to be adding primarily Vikings. I'm not sure who this is going to favor. Obviously, the Ravens will be great against tanks in disabling them, but they will lose value in the sense that each Raven has, you know, the first Raven that you cast with is the easiest one to cast with. It'll cast onto the unit that is the closest. The anti-armor missiles, they don't stack, etc., etc. So they kind of become redundant. And there's also like limited surface area for the auto turret and so on and so forth. So I'm not sure. Ravens are definitely better than Vikings per supply, though. So, you know, I don't know. I don't know who I favor here.
It's definitely going to come down to how the engagement actually takes place. Where are the players sieged up? Who's sieging up first? Who's pushing into who? And all of that, we're going to have to just wait and see, I guess. So we're starting to see HeRoMaRinE darting up to the north side, looking like he wants to commit in a little bit, start taking out some of these missile turrets. Oh, anti-armor missile lands on these Marines, so they're going to have to back off for at least a little bit unless they want to just get, you know, annihilated by effectively having 3 less armor.
Yeah, but Big Gabe continues to push on forward. He has the air superiority as far as Vikings are concerned, and with that, he has made enough Liberators that he can start pushing on forward and taking down these tanks. The turrets are essential on the side of MilkiCow to prevent this tactic from happening, yet still the Liberators will find a spot where they can actually siege one of those siege tanks, and another one in the back from Big Gabe, just finding space everywhere.
Yeah, MilkiCow a little bit slower to react to that south side Liberator, and it's also going to be denying another gas geyser as well. MilkiCow not exactly sitting on the most amazing economy right now either. A lot of Marines being moved down to that south side. As if she can just leave these bases up on the north almost totally vulnerable. The planetary fortresses are going to be able to defend themselves against Marines, sure, but the siege tanks start getting in range. There's no repair coming out on the top planetary fortress. So that's going to end up falling. MilkiCow, is he going to end up even trying to defend this? Maybe he just feels like he can't.
Yeah, it's so difficult, right? Because there's so many Vikings on the side of Big Gabe. And yeah, you have a lot of Ravens, but they are not going to help against Vikings when there is as many tanks as there is to take care of auto turrets or anything on the ground. So you really need your own Vikings, I feel like, at this point. But MilkiCow is predominantly just continuing to make Ravens. I like this move instead. He's going to go for the counter offense. If there was any tanks, he can disable infinite amounts of tanks with his Ravens. So in so long as he continues to have the ground advantage here, he could carve himself a very nice spot to siege Big Gabe. This is a brilliant move from the Russian, I think, utilizing his army to the best of its potential, but a lot of these Ravens are going to suffer some losses to those Vikings as they retreat. Big Gabe has already killed one base, but this is a very strong position to anchor for MilkiCow.
Yeah, Liberators continue to try and do some damage on the other side of the map. They get cleaned up. MilkiCow situated between basically 3 of the bases over here for Big Gabe.
Lovely.
Raven's going to throw down the auto turrets on these siege tanks that are undefended. The Marines, not enough to defend them. A large number of pickoffs over there for MilkiCow. Even gets the command center getting in on top of the starports as well. Really, really big moves here from MilkiCow.
Yeah, and this is too many Vikings at this point from Big Gabe. I mean, MilkiCow could even just retreat and continue to siege that 4th base, that forward 4th base of Big Gabe, and then move to the 5th base or whatever that base is to the left-hand side. So yeah, I mean, Vikings, they're not helpful against these Marines. The Marines, all they have to do is not run into those siege lines of Big Gabe, and they are pretty well tucked in there, those siege lines. So yeah, things are not looking too bad for the Russian. Even though he's trailing in supply, he has a strong position still.
Yeah, I think the problem now is going to be, yes, once the Vikings start coming forward, the Marines cannot move forward to help defend his own Ravens and Vikings. Because siege tanks, yeah, all the auto turrets get thrown down, but now what? Now your Ravens are all out of energy. You can't disable the siege tanks anymore. Liberators come on forward. And where does MilkiCow go? There's not even much of a retreat here.
Yeah, there isn't. And those Marines were kind of just idle through all of that. So MilkiCow will eventually get picked off little by little. And now it's looking pretty grim as he has to abandon his very strong positional advantage there. And that leaves him at a 50 supply deficit, unfortunately for him. Big Gabe still with a huge air superiority. And MilkiCow not even trying to contest on those grounds. And I can't blame him, right? Like, look at how many Vikings Big Gabe still has.
Yeah,
actually, it's not that many. No, he lost a lot of them.
He did, but there's now 11 Liberators.
Oh, jeez.
Not exactly great versus Vikings, but when all of your opponent's Vikings are pretty softened up, and you have even just a few Vikings, the Liberators actually do some pretty sick splash damage.
Yeah, they really can. So let's see what happens as Big Gabe is going to start pushing now. There is enough Vikings and turrets. Actually, sieging the Liberators onto the turrets could be a blessing in disguise for MilkiCow, who is going to siege the rest of his tanks in the back. But now the Liberators, I mean, the 1 or 2 turrets have fallen. And with that, Big Gabe will claim this base and potentially the map.
Yeah, this is where it gets extremely difficult for MilkiCow, who really is just kind of working on scraps right now. His income kind of in the gutter. He's barely got enough minerals to make a few of these units at a time right now. The Liberator sieges up inside the range of the missile turrets. They're not going to get too much more damage done over there, but Big Gabe is not done. He's going to be going for that center base yet again, and if he shuts that down, that is the majority of the mining that's actually happening for MilkiCow, I think.
Yes, indeed. And Big Gabe has been so annoying with these Liberators. Yeah, we saw that Liberator even sieged at the bottom, and it dies to the turret, but it had 5 kills already. MilkiCow just trying to hang on for dear life, but it's going to be near impossible here.
the number of liberators that HeRoMaRinE has now is hitting that point where like they can actually just take on Marine clumps too. Like if the Marines start stepping forward, liberators will just kill them as they kind of trickle in.
MilkiCow finding a very nice angle here to disable a lot of those siege tanks. However, the two in the back are gonna be enough to anchor things with those liberators. For Big Gabe, MilkiCow still looking for some spot to carve himself any sort of a victory, but Big Gabe is not giving in.
These are the last two bases, though, that are actually mining right now. That last base that was in the center, and then this one. This base honestly does not have too much hope unless somehow MilkiCow can mount a defense right here, but his units are going around such a long path. I don't think unless he's going to repair, he might make it there in time to save it. He has to. Otherwise, I don't think he has to stand a chance in this game anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Very good disables once again on these tanks, but at the expense of all of his Raven fleet. So he really doesn't have much to work with in the future here, and that is a very expensive army to lose as well. He's still trailing something like 62 supplies, so it's not looking good for MilkiCow. And Big Gabe, he has taken the map behind this, and this is what he's so very good at. I mean, you're looking at all the action and everything that he's doing so well aggressively, but when you look at what he's doing behind it, he's a monster.
Yeah, he is taking the map, expanding to his full size, and he's going to also be putting some pressure on this north-hand base, which is now the last mining base of MilkiCow. MilkiCow is trying to repair it, bleeding resources almost as fast as they're coming in at this point. And I think that MilkiCow will be able to clean up some of these siege tanks, but the rest of HeRoMaRiNE's army is now positioned around the center, and I think just getting ready to intercept, I imagine MilkiCow's kind of final little push.
It is a final little push. I like the way you put that, Ravi, because yeah, and there's not even gonna be that. A single G from MilkiCow, but I think it was a good game, well played by him, to be honest. I mean, you look at that game and you wouldn't think that he is 0-15 now, right?
Yeah, it's honestly one of those series where those games where I think MilkiCow in his loss showed how strong he can be. It was a game that gave me hope for a game number 2. It gave me hope that MilkiCow can actually turn things around in this series. I
don't know about turn things around for sure, but I don't know. Maybe, I mean, he could take a map for sure, right? Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think it starts with a map, right? You always have to start with a map.
That's true. That's true.
He got into a position in that game that I think was like really not that bad. It was him. It was kind of like awkward, weird trades where HeRoMaRiNE did have a really significant Viking count lead. MilkiCow is still making some magic happen though, with like saying, okay, well, you have a lot of Vikings, but you don't have as many siege tanks. I can find little bits of damage here. He hit that other timing for the push out later on when HeRoMaRiNE was trying to push into him, but then he just decided to turn it into like a quasi base trade, found better positioning, just maybe overstayed his welcome a little bit or couldn't quite push in fast enough at one point. But I really do think that MilkiCow had some really solid moves there.
Yeah, for me, it's exactly what you just said. I think that he had a very strong position. It was a brilliant decision to just completely avoid the army of Big Gabe and to cruise on across the map because you have those Ravens, so you can disable those tanks and you can gain space and room. But he was a little bit shy to push further into that natural, further into that main, or at least to siege the 4th while you're occupying that space. Right, so he was occupying a very annoying space, but he wasn't applying enough pressure that it was forcing mistakes or reactions out of Big Gabe. So Big Gabe just kind of sat back, waited until he had enough. He had room to adjust his Vikings, pick off the pieces one by one, and is able eventually to hold the very annoying attack of MilkiCow. But it looked promising, and it looked like with a little bit more confidence, and maybe against a lesser player, he might have just gotten in there, get on top of the production, and kind of just close out the game from there, potentially even.
Yeah, doesn't end up working out though, so he'll have to try again from scratch in game number 2. Starting up here on the top right-hand side of the map, top of that young aspiring player is the red Terran, MilkiCow.
Bottom left-hand side, one of the better macro players and dancers that the world has ever seen. It is Big Gabe.
Well, leave you, for those who don't know, the famous, infamous clip, Big Gabe, leave you to discover that one yourself.
Yes, you have. Yeah, you have to find Big Gabe's dance. It is definitely going to be worth your while. If you haven't, it is one of the greatest things you'll ever see, quite possibly.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I know exactly how to tell people the search terms for it, but I'm not sure that the search terms I want to put on the stream. So, find them yourself.
Find them yourself.
Best of luck with your endeavors.
Yes, indeed. You will be rewarded for your search. Now, we see here the map is Oxide. This is one of my favorite TVT maps because it is such a positional map. It is a map that usually favors Terran in the other matchups, oftentimes, because it is so annoying on so many spots with the sieges, right? So there is good spots to siege tanks at the triangle third or by the triangle third. There's good spots to siege tanks at the potential fourth base and to cut off reinforcements from the natural, for example. There is just a lot of room to make things happen for Terran on this map. It's otherwise an open map that can be made even further open with killing rocks and such, and a lot of rocks also to sit tanks behind in the other matchups more so than in this one. But either way, it's an exciting map. It's a very tactical map. So we'll see what these players have in store.
Absolutely, and positioning, as we keep talking about, is the name of the game for TVT especially. Now, Reapers come on in, they snipe off the SCV that was building that starport, another SCV already put on it, so HeRoMaRinE, not too slow about making that happen, but just get some basic scouting information, it looks like.
Yes, indeed. HeRoMaRinE will be moving out now with a mine. So buying himself a little bit of wiggle room for that mine, leading with the Hellion. And actually, the Reaper's not quite gathered together at the moment. So had there been units out on the map for MilkiCow, as Big Gabe now adjusts to kind of let the Reaper catch up, it could have been a little bit dangerous. However, he has carved himself that much space to where he burrows the Widow Mine on the tall grass. So it's going to be very difficult to see. It's going to be hiding, because usually you can see the mark of the Widow Mine more easily, but here it's going to be very difficult to spot. You can see things from within those bushes if you're hiding in the bushes with any unit, but you can't see inside them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why they say, the Panther will wait for you in the tall grass. It is a difficult space to spot and can really cause a lot of problems, catch you by surprise, but not going to be as big of a problem if you're just. I have never heard
anyone say that, Ravi. Like, where would they? Oh my God! No, this is bad. MilkiCow, no.
Okay, he at least gets the Cyclones out. He gets the Cyclones out.
Very good reaction, actually, from MilkiCow, avoiding potential disaster there. Instead, it's just a small loss. The Panther will where do people even interact with?
In the tall grass. I mean, I say a Panther, but it's like a threat. Kind of thing today, right? I'll wait for you in the tall grass because you crossed me. Yeah. Basically, it's like the equivalent of saying "watch your back." Like, I'm coming for you.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I've been to the Amazon and I've hung out with Amazonian tribes, and they have never even warned me about. Well, only I've only stopped by and met them. Not really. I didn't stay there and live.
But maybe they already, the Panthers are not threatening to them because they already know about podcasts, right? I imagine these Amazonian.
But you would imagine they would you would imagine if anyone is gonna warn me about that, it would be them, right? They'd be like the Panther.
They are the ones that stand. They are the one who knock. Okay, they're the ones who stand in the podcast.
I see.
That's why they didn't warn you, because they'd be warning you about themselves.
I see. Very interesting. Yeah, that could very well be it. I hadn't thought about it like that, Rabbit.
Yeah, you gotta think about things from their perspective also, Paulo.
That is true. That is very true.
While that's been going on, it does seem like we are finally getting to the point where the Ravens are out. We got the 2 Ravens and a decent number of these siege tanks out over here for HeRoMaRinE. So with his 3rd finishing up, it seems like he wants to kind of move down the ramp, establish that position down on the low ground. And MilkiCow also finishing up his own 3rd, I think should be set up to do the same. We might be getting into yet another good old macro game here.
Yeah, it seemed like MilkiCow was pretty comfortable going into those macro games. It seemed like, he was he was not foreign to it. He was dropping a lot of CCs at the same time as Big Gabe. I mean, that's got to be a good sign. I learned a thing or two there, because when, you know, two great players are in agreement, there's probably something to learn. There's some sort of consensus. And so, yeah, it really goes to show that he is comfortable in that area and most likely where he wants to play the games. That's likely also why he is so unfavored against Big Gabe, right? Because that is Big Gabe's biggest comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely the way that Big Gabe wins a lot of his games. Like, it's his forte to just play his very solid standard style games. He's going to be doing this little push out over here. MilkiCow, I think, should have spotted this out with his Cyclones, seeing that they were moving to the right, and now he's going to spot it out with a couple of Marines that are acting as the alerts, sacrificing their lives to get some advance notice and know that I need to siege up immediately. Raven already throws out some of those interference matrices, though, and these siege tanks duking it out. Looks like MilkiCow will start pushing HeRoMaRinE a bit further back. HeRoMaRinE only has 2 siege tanks left over.
Yeah, a little bit of a delayed this disable there on the side of MilkiCow actually disables a tank that was going to die anyway, and he should have noted that that was the case, and loses a Raven, I believe, for his troubles. However, at the same time, he does a great job of killing some SCVs, could potentially pick off that Viking as well that's landed if he focus fires it, and he will. Very good job from MilkiCow. Now, Big Gabe having to pull back his own Cyclone, but it will die before he can kill one of MilkiCow's. Big Gabe forced to push in, but I don't know that he can actually do this. And MilkiCow pulling SCVs will completely wipe Big Gabe off the face of the earth, at least as far as his side of the map is concerned. This is looking good for the Russian.
David has found his slingshot, and it is really getting some good damage done over here. Cyclones continuing to get little bits and pieces of damage and just distracting Big Gabe as now the rest of the army pushes on forward. And this is MilkiCow doubling in army supply. He goes for the interference matrix. Raven gets sniped off, but I don't think it's going to matter if he pushes on in over here.
Has to kill the tank.
Be expiring soon, but is this enough?
Beautiful. He's done it, I think. I think this is it. I think MilkiCow is about to take his first map ever in official matches against Big Gabe, and it looked good. And I mean, game one also looked good. Ravi, you called it. Maybe this is the makings of some StarCraft history here. This could be the starting of the rise of MilkiCow. This is maybe I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there, but you know, it's exciting.
It definitely is, and well, MilkiCow has solidified himself a very large advantage. Nice. Trying to go for some tank snipes, but MilkiCow on top of it with the medevac pickups, just not allowing HeRoMaRinE to do what he can do so well and just bounce back from the game with really solid plays.
Great anticipation there, right? Like, the medevac is the type of unit that will move ahead of his army in this situation. It's a little bit faster than the tank, obviously, so he pulls it back, identifying that he would have a weak spot whilst those tanks are getting unsieged, and that's why the medevac is where it is and ready to unsiege. So very good preemptive moves here from MilkiCow. Again, this time to relocate the tanks to try and cut off the army of Big Gabe, but regardless, Big Gabe has gotten past that move from MilkiCow and actually solidifies himself a good spot at his third base. MilkiCow has to find a cleanup here some way, somehow. The tanks are sieged, but the Marines are going to be able to clear those out. And all of a sudden, I'm not so sure that he's going to get this win after all, Ravi.
This is what's so scary. This is what I was talking about. HeRoMaRinE is just that type of top-notch level player where we see players of his caliber falling behind sometimes. Sometimes they do get a bit surprised by something, but they find ways to pull things back. They find ways to take these efficient trades. MilkiCow still has a bit of an advantage over here, but now with his main base being sieged up, his third base having to retreat up to the high ground, and this insane amount of defensive coverage from those siege tanks, MilkiCow is in a bit of trouble, but he's not dead yet. He's still in an okay-ish spot and can recover from this.
Those two Vikings that are about to pop up now, one because of the reactor getting taken down, are super important to try to push back these medevacs and the vision that Big Gabe has for free. They're onto that high ground, but Big Gabe finding pickups on the other side as well onto two very important tanks. Now MilkiCow forced to pull SCVs. He has a lot of medevacs, but the Marine count is dwindling. No!
Oh. MilkiCow.
Oh, my heart.
Oh, HeRoMaRinE. Big Gabe will not be